We're here. It's amazing. I told Julie, I don't think anyone's going to come today. We're just like in a mindset now, right? Like we have so much to grade and so much to do, and thinking about a syllabus seems like, whoa, really far away. But I am so glad that you are here, and I welcome everyone. And if you could just go over to the chat, get your chat open. I'm going to share my screen, and you can take a minute to adjust everything so you are able to see what's going on and also see each other. I know it always takes me a minute to recalibrate once my screen share goes on. I gotta find everybody again. Okay, great. So if you could in the chat say where you work at Hunter, what department you're in, that would be great. And let's just see who's here in this little room. We have a nice intimate room today. Yay. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Awesome. So, Stephen, you're the one who's new, right? This semester, or new on a full-time? Do I remember that right?
You are remembering that correctly.
Okay. How's it going?
It's going well.
All right, good. I'm glad that that you've been able to persist in this in your new role. So we are going to we're going to have like a nice, good little, be able to have hopefully some conversation here today, and we are going to be talking about the syllabus. The syllabus. And you might, your syllabus is probably, you're so sick of looking at it by now this semester. And maybe it's changed a lot. Maybe there are things you're already thinking you should have added, or you are kind of putting in the back of your mind to change for your spring teaching. So hopefully this session will inspire some of those thoughts. Okay, so first off, I'm going to have you take a look at the, I love my memes. So take a look at your memes and put one number, the number of the one you like in the chat, and give you a second to look at them. Oh my gosh. The fours. You're seeing the syllabus through the professor's point of view. All right, how about number 2? A couple of people have number 2. Definitely the student point of view. I think the feeling of like dreading the process of creating it, as well as thinking about how students are going to feel that day looking at it, is kind of the energy behind wanting to make the whole process more fun. So let's take a look at what this professor did. I'm going to just play this video quickly. Hopefully you'll be able to hear okay. I'll have Julie just give me a thumbs up there.
Hello everyone, welcome to Camp 16. I'm Dr. Benny. I'll be the instructor for this class. Today, I have a very special guest who has a very important message for you all.
A message from Big Snoop Deal Double G to all the university students. Yo, syllabus. You gotta do it. You gotta read it.
Why is that, Snoop?
Man, I'm telling you, the more you know, the further you go. Tell them Snoop Dogg sent you. Syllabus. I know all about it. Catch up so we can have a conversation. Don't be late. Let's go.
Okay, Snoop. Thank you for dropping the word of wisdom. Hey, you heard my man. Have you read my syllabus yet? Go to this link and start reading the syllabus. I'm going to catch up with Snoop right now, so peace.
How about that, Daniel? Do you think that'll work for you? I could see you.
That professor is way cooler than I am.
I don't think so. But he definitely hijacks.
He hangs out with Snoop Dogg. I've never done that.
Well, you can hijack that exact same clip and just insert yourself into there. So obviously we are trying all kinds of things to get our students to pay attention to our syllabus. So let's take a look at this quote really quick. It says, even as the syllabus has bloated beyond all recognition, its basic format has been basically unchanged. The professor's contact institution information, office hours, description of the course, some policies, a course calendar. While different professors provide these in varying amount of detail, they still look pretty similar. So two thoughts there. One is that our syllabi have become bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. And this was actually written 10 years ago. So there is even more language that we're asked to insert, right? So this thing gets humongous. And this idea that they look pretty similar. So thinking about what the syllabus does for you, and that's something we'll talk about in this session. Do you want your syllabus to look exactly the same as everyone else's? Do you look the same as everyone else? Is your course the same as everyone else? So I think that is a good jumping off point to our agenda. So we're going to be talking about 4 areas today. The audience for our syllabus, the purpose, a bunch of presentation ideas, design ideas, and just a few other thoughts on how to engage students with the syllabus. So for a second, I'd like you to think about, and you can post in the chat, who do you think of when you're writing your syllabus? Who is your audience? So we're thinking about the syllabus the way we would any kind of writing document, you know, any genre, anything that we're producing. Who are we writing it for? Audience is always so important. So are you thinking about your department chair? Are you thinking about Hunter College? Are you thinking about other adjuncts who might be teaching the course? Are you thinking about yourself? Are you thinking about like how you're going to use it? Are you thinking about the students that you have right now, students that you might have in the future, or any other ideas? And even when you're thinking right now, like, oh, well, it's just for the students, right? How could it also be for these other audiences? It's about you as an educator, you as a course designer. And yes, you're working in certain constraints, as we all are. But what happens when we only stick to the template, right? So we're moving outside of the template for this session. So I'll ask you to go on that journey with me. So what Julie's mentioning is, you know, there are these other audiences that potentially are there, but we don't actually name them. We kind of think, oh, this is just, sometimes actually we think really just about ourselves. Like we have to have these things, or like Daniel said, we have to make sure that things are spaced out according to our own schedule for that, you know, semester. And we're also thinking about the things that in the past we've known students have trouble with, trying to make things clearer. So you can see where you may even need different versions of a syllabus. You know, maybe there's a version that is, like Roberta says, strictly for compliance purposes, and it's stripped to the bare bones. If your department chair truly requires it. Maybe there's a different version that is more expanded or interactive that you plan to use as like a living document with your students and with you for the rest of the semester. So you can kind of play a little bit with what audience does in terms of your choices in what you do with your syllabus. Okay, let's think now a little about purpose, which we also think about when we're creating or crafting writing products. So is the purpose to motivate our students? Is it to be transparent? Is it about helping them understand the pacing of the course, expectations that we have? Is it to provide guidance? Is it a chance to personalize the learning between you and those students, or other ideas? So think for a minute about a course that you're teaching now, maybe, and the syllabus that you're using and how you're actually using it throughout the whole semester. Does it kind of fulfill all of these to some degree or some of them? Taking a moment to step back and consider our more noble goals for teaching, and moving out of a compliance mentality, and thinking about how does the syllabus become, that first impression of the course, like our chemistry professor who brought in Snoop Dogg, and how does it balance some of those challenges around the obligations we have to fulfill, as well as being something that is much greater than just this sort of formulaic, something that we go over and then we kind of put to the side. The design considerations, if we didn't have to write a syllabus at all, maybe we wouldn't really think through learning goals, learning outcomes, or connect like as Daniel was saying, some of the pacing, we wouldn't consider those. It would sort of unroll or unravel as it happens. But it's real important, of course, as we know, to think strategically when we have, a limited number of weeks with students. How do we want to spend our time with the students? And kind of going back to the audience is thinking about, I think where we were here is we are working within a compliance system. We do need legal language. We do need those things. So I don't mean to say we don't have them. What I was trying to get at is that for ourselves as educators, how can the syllabus creation be a meaningful process? How can it help us kind of refine our thinking or get students really engaged and motivated to be part of our class? So this is an example. I'm going to talk now about some presentation styles, and maybe in looking at these, this will be a way to circle back to like what Jack's question was, just like why do we even write this syllabus? So here is sort of what we would consider like a typical syllabus, a traditional syllabus. This is what a student would get. This is sort of like our standard type looking syllabus, right? Looks like mine. Thank you, Paul. Exactly. All right. So let's see. This one went through this sort of transformation, thinking really about some of those different purposes and audiences, and using some design principles to do that. So this is the transformation. This is what the syllabus looks like now. It's the same course. And these are like templates that you can plug and play, which is great. So this is like a Canva type of template. It has everything that you're supposed to have, the compliance aspects, It also has kind of fun ways of getting you to look through some of the expectations, some of the things that you're going to learn about in the course. And obviously, it's presented differently than what we saw over here. Okay, so comparing now to this version, what are some of your thoughts or feelings here? So Amber says, nice, more readable, more engaging, informative. I want to read it. Less formal. Okay. It's a PDF, so it's not any bigger than anything that someone else, a long Word document. So let's continue. Let's take a look. So we see some of these things, like Amber says, you almost set the tone for a class with a design like this. And for sure, one of the things that is talked about a lot is like that first class where you go over the syllabus. Is that a good use of time, to spend the first class going over a whole syllabus? Well, maybe there are ways to actually give students a syllabus before the first class. And sort of like Xiao has talked about, those orientation modules, orienting people to the course, giving them the syllabus, giving them something to do with the syllabus, so that you can actually do maybe some fun activity or review or highlight or do some other things, which I'll talk about during the first class. And obviously something like this might be more compelling, as you said, might engage students in wanting to read the item a bit more. So I wanted to share my syllabus that I'm using this semester. So I'm just going to quickly show you some of the things that I put in here, and then we'll look at some more different examples. And like Xiao has put some of the different softwares or programs that you can use. So my syllabus, it looks like this. It's a web link, and I have a little intro video.
Hi, welcome to our course, and this is a little introduction to our syllabus.
Okay, so I've embedded a little video, and I've made it kind of clickable, so I can click on the different tabs, return to the beginning, and this is really very easy to do. It is very similar to, really making a Word document, because it's just using Google Slides. And on some of the pages, like on things that I know students have a lot of trouble with, I've added another video on that page of the syllabus just to explain it a little bit more. So I wanted to just share that with you, just to show you, again, another way to have students participate in the syllabus. And because it's a slide that publishes to the web, any changes that I make over here automatically update. So I don't have to worry about different versions of the syllabus. It will always be kind of live. And I can also, because it's a slide deck, I can easily print this out as a PDF. So I can create a printed version, if I need to. So I don't know if you have any questions or ideas coming up related to this, but we can come back to this one. I just wanted to share. Okay. And Dale talks about, perfect. Yes. And we will talk about accessibility. Okay. So these are some different design approaches. I showed you that first one, the US history one, the before and after. I showed you mine, and these are a few more. And the link to this whole slide deck, I will share, so you can come back and look at anything in here you'd like. We did a session last year for a cert on designing your syllabus when it's an online course. So I have that slide deck here, just if you want to refer to it. So here's a few kind of versions. An infographic style. So this is an article about how to do this. Let me see if I can close these ads. I've obviously been looking at chairs. Okay. And this is a way, again, to divide into sections and have students sort of process the information as an infographic rather than as straight text. And this doesn't have to be an either or. So a lot of you are like, well, what about this? What about that? You can have your standard Microsoft completely, just basic version. And you can have another version of the syllabus if you'd like to, that has some of these aspects. This one is like a newsletter style. There are a lot of templates to do your syllabus also in kind of this more visual graphic way, to really get some of the information across, as well as the topics that you're going to be covering. Okay. This one is presenting the syllabus as a series of FAQs. So where's the syllabus? This is the syllabus, okay? And then it goes through, what is this? What is that? All right, and it's what they call FAQ style. Can you cheat? No. Okay, what if I have to miss a class? Blah, blah, blah. This is a neat one. It's a hand illustrated syllabus. Again, I know everyone's like, well, what about accessibility and all of that? Everything here you would probably need for something like this one, an alternate version. This is for, it's an art class, and this is a sketch note style syllabus. Okay, there's another one. Real expression of who the person is giving the course. It's not like anyone else's, right? Unique. This is a syllabus that is done in a Prezi. So students can come in and out of this syllabus through that, kind of in and out scoping that Prezi does. This is one that is a course on Shakespeare, and it's actually a foldable. So it's printed out and students create a quarto from it. I thought you'd like that, Julie. Okay. And this one is again, that magazine style. All right. So those are a bunch of different ideas around design approaches. And another thing that is really been talked about more and more, not only just engaging students more visually in syllabus design, which is a form of inclusivity, because instead of just reading straight text, it uses maybe audio, video, imagery, to reach students. There are also some great guidance documents on how to make your syllabus more inclusive. This document relates to things like making it more learner-centered, thinking about the rhetoric or the language you use in it, again, using different modalities, accessibility issues and readability issues. And then this is one, a document that I really like that is about how to survey or review your syllabus so that you are thinking about inclusion. And that could be anything from social class, race, ability, immigration status, all kinds of things. And it actually gives you, not that you can do all of these at the same time, but for each section that you might have, how to make it more inclusive. So even like your professor information, for example, maybe it's called student hours instead of office hours. Maybe you're more explicit about how you will interact with students. Maybe you use pronouns there when you introduce yourself. Maybe you have a photo. Maybe you talk about your DEI values right there in your opening of your syllabus. So this is I think, very rich. We could do like, wow, like a series of workshops just working through this. But it has the standard sections of the syllabus and a number of practices that you can consider when you're looking at your syllabus. Technologies. So I don't disappoint Daniel. So there are a lot of great technologies, and I think Xiao put some of them already in the chat. We talked about Prezi. We've talked about Google Slides and Google Docs. There's also things like PictoChart or Canva. ThingLink is an amazing tool. I love ThingLink, and it basically takes a static page and creates all kinds of hotspots where students will click and get more information, maybe more text or video or audio. So it's almost like doing a virtual tour. So you can take a virtual tour of your class in a sense, and you're only giving one page. So it's not overwhelming numbers and pages of text. It's really like one central page you could think of with a number of places to shoot off and to investigate further. Okay. I think slides is one of the easiest. That's how I created mine. And it's very versatile. And obviously not hard to learn. So a few things now to think about: how do I get those students to read the syllabus? So hopefully now that maybe you've added more of some multimodality and you've thought about some other ways to just bring students into the course and to have it more of your unique style or touch to it, not just sort of generic looking. Maybe now they're a little more intrigued. Maybe they're going to look into it, hopefully a little more. And then there are some things you can do to kind of push them to look further. And we can talk more about these on Thursday. I know some of you have some ideas. It'll be great to hear from you on Thursday, what you do, to get students to really look through the syllabus. One is obviously the syllabus quiz. The syllabus quiz could be something that is really fun, and it could be like, you could use Kahoot and make it really fun and silly. You could make it serious and, give points in Blackboard or whatever. You can make it a true quiz where they can't look at it, they have to read and actually remember, or you can make it more like a scavenger hunt quiz where they look for things and then find them. You can also do things like annotate the syllabus, and we'll be talking about more of these again on Thursday, but just to give you a highlight. So annotation tools, obviously like Kami or Hypothesis or whatever, or even just using a Google Doc, students can insert, and you can require them to maybe work with a partner or a group, or in some way insert things. Maybe they have to insert a certain number of questions, or insert a certain number of things that they're concerned about, or insert a couple of comments about things they're excited about, etc., or that they relate to. And that kind of like forces that close reading. Easter eggs are really popular as well, where you put in somewhere in the syllabus, if you've read this, send me a picture of, I don't know, send me a picture of a walrus or something. And all of a sudden the professor gets all these pictures of walry sent to them, and they can tell who's read through and who hasn't, and you can give extra points for those, and those are a lot of fun. You can do things with linked videos. So for example, like I put in a couple of video spots in my syllabus because there are things that I always wind up having to explain, and so I can put them there. And you can also have students link video. So maybe they read it and they have to post something, let's say on Flipgrid or elsewhere, that they have to ask one question, say one thing they are excited about, one thing they learned or whatever. So it gets them again to have to be interactive. And by the way, the same is true for the quizzes. You can have students create the quizzes that then each other has to answer instead of you making up the quiz. That also makes them go through the syllabus in more detail. Open responses are kind of neat. You can have students have to write you something about one of the assignments that they feel they'll do very well in and why, or an assignment they're really anxious about and why, or something they already know about this topic in the course. So they're a little more open, free writing. And the co-creating could be where you leave a certain section open. Maybe it's your expectations of group work, something like that. And or a policy on late assignments even, and you have students and you discuss it in class and co-create the policy that then gets added in to the syllabus. That's kind of another way to get students to move through the syllabus. And a last one is, if you do come in the first day, you could have something like a jigsaw icebreaker. So you divide the students into teams. Team 1 sits together and they just look at the policy section. Maybe team 2 looks at like the readings and the assignments, etc. Then they have to become experts in that part of the syllabus, one part of it. Then they regroup and have to share with each other what they learned. So it becomes an icebreaker as well as breaking down the syllabus and kind of getting them to look through it, perhaps on your first class session. Okay, so that's what I have today. And what I'm going to do now is let me put the link right now into the chat for this slide deck for anyone who is here. Everything is linked inside it. So some of those items you could be able to kind of go back to. And I'm going to